Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
The Missouri Club for Growth is an organization that supports low tax, low regulation, and free market policies. The club sees itself as bringing new focus and energy to the fight for smaller government and fiscal responsibility in the state of Missouri. The club's chairman, Alan Icet, is a former state representative from West St. Louis County. While in the Missouri House, Mr. Icet was chairman of the Budget Committee. It was his job to manage the House of Representatives budget process. Today, Mr. Icet is here to explain why he's working with the Missouri Club for Growth and what he hopes the group will accomplish. Alan Icet, welcome to Conversation.
Lee, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Well, we're glad to have you back. It's been a little while.
It has been.
In those days, you were a big state rep, and now you're living the real life.
Well, back, as my wife calls it, back into the real world.
Real world, yes.
That's exactly right.
Why, what is this club for? I mean, I just said what it was, but I mean, what is it and why are you doing this?
Well, what it is, and as you said quite accurately, the club is a state chapter of a national organization, and there are just a few state chapters in the U.S., and Missouri has one. And so we're interested in promoting policies within the state of Missouri that encourage low tax, low regulation, free market, state sovereignty, things of that nature. And we also look for and endorse and support candidates for state office, be they state rep, state senator, or statewide, that obviously embrace those concepts. Obviously, Missouri is a sovereign state, and we would like to see the state continue down that path. Now, why did I get involved in the organization? As you pointed out, I served in the Missouri House for 8 years. I was term limited. Missouri has 8-year term limits on state representatives and state senators. Well, last September, the organization asked me to come on board as their chairman to help them to grow the name ID, basically, to spread the word, so to speak, around Missouri that there is an organization that supports these good policies, and we would like citizens of the state of Missouri to join us to help us push these concepts and ideas in Jefferson City. So it's something I do, what I say, for fun. It's not a paying position. It keeps me involved in politics, and I, for one, and I think you'd agree that the people of the state of Missouri deserve good government in Jefferson City, and that is the effort that I'm engaged in, as well as the Club for Growth, to ensure we have good government in the state of Missouri.
Who doesn't believe in that? I mean, it just seems to me that they're,
I understand.
The club for those who enjoy clean water.
Yes. It is surprising, and whenever I was elected, prior to me being elected to the Missouri House, we all have certain beliefs and credos and whatever the case may be, and I thought most people would agree with that a low tax situation is better because it encourages businesses and entrepreneurs to hire people, and that's how you grow tax revenue coming into the state's coffers via private industry or private business.
Well, it also keeps money where you can go to the grocery store or go to the restaurants or go to clothing stores in people's pockets if taxes are low.
Exactly right.
Sorry for interrupting.
No,
go ahead.
Not at all. But what I found is there are people on the other side of the aisle, my colleagues, who believe that the best thing for the state of Missouri would be to raise taxes to take more income from the producers, so to speak, and then turn around and redistribute it. So they're clearly, when it comes to the state budget,
do they wish to redistribute this?
To the people that they believe need help, that have been cheated, if you were, by life's situation or life's consequences. And so they believe, and I give them credit, they're sincere in their beliefs, that by taking money from the producers and giving it, redistributing it to those who are not, then that's better for everyone. And of course, I would disagree with that strenuously. And whenever the budget hit the House floor, I would tell people, if you want to see that clear philosophical divide between the two parties, show up on the House floor whenever the budget comes to the floor, because that's when the fight really starts. So there are people who would disagree that low tax, low regulation is good for the state. They believe that the state government, and obviously federal government, knows much more than private citizens, and if government could just regulate our lives a little more, things would be so much better.
Yeah, well,
I disagree.
Well, just as a sidebar, we've had discussions here about the new MSD rules. I mean, they just had this lawsuit, right? You're familiar with this?
A little bit.
Okay, MSD was involved in a lawsuit that dates back a number of years because some private citizen and associated with an environmental group began a lawsuit because so they were using EPA regulations, and in order to do all this good work, it's just going to require that your sewer bill that you're paying in Missouri or in St. Louis County and St. Louis City only goes from $25 a month, where it is right now, up to somewhere between $50 and $100 a month. So that's going to help a lot of people out, I'm sure, in order to reach arbitrary goals.
I'm sure they'll reach some wonderful arbitrary goals and probably need more money after that too. So.
Yeah. So coming back to the Club for Growth, how do you spread your message? How are you trying to accomplish these goals? And it seems to me already, with the large numbers of Republicans both in the House and the Senate, that you don't have a whole big hill to get over.
Well, let me answer the first question first. What I'm doing, and one of the reasons I was brought on board, is I actually, serving in the House for 8 years and actually ran statewide, I know a number of people around the state, so I have pretty decent name ID. And so they have asked me to come on board to use that name ID, if you will, to encourage people to get involved, to become members, and there is no cost to become a member of the Missouri Club for Growth, to get involved, and we would keep you as the citizen informed on what's going on in Jefferson City. And so using just my contact list is one way. Another thing that we are doing is we do have other board members who live in other parts of the state. We will have events, kind of what I would refer to as a meet and greet, and they will invite their network to come out and hear what Missouri Club for Growth is about. So we've had events in Kansas City, we've had actually some in St. Louis, we will have some in Columbia as well as Springfield, and we had one not too long ago in Kirksville. So we're trying to get to all parts of the state just to press or to push the message to grow the name ID, as it were. And so it really is a lot of time on task, just meeting people one-on-one or in small groups and encouraging them to join the club. In fact, I was in Rolla Thursday, I believe, of last week, and about 20 or 30 people with a political club just did the same thing I'm doing here, explain what the Missouri Club for Growth is about, and encourage them to get involved in their state government, because as you know, there's so much attention at the federal level, people tend to overlook what's going on the state level. And as you said, even though we have an overwhelming number of people in the General Assembly who believe in those principles, there is always that philosophical fight that if the state of Missouri just had more taxes and maybe more regulation, we could solve these problems. Well, we're there to encourage those members to take a real hard look at, do taxes really solve problems? Or again, are you simply taking from the productive sector of society and redistributing it to the non-productive sector?
Before we went on the air, I was telling you about something that having to do with the recent fight over the United States budget. And there are those at the federal level who are talking about, well, if we just raise taxes, we can solve some of our problems. And then I said to you, well, I've looked into this and come to find out that it's going to take somewhere between $77 billion and $127 billion per month in increased taxes in order to solve these problems or bring the budget back into balance. I'm just wondering what happens when you take $77 billion out of the productive economy each month. So this, I guess, applies to what you're saying to the state of Missouri?
Well, it does, in that the money that goes to Washington, D.C. comes from the 50 states. And so if taxes were to go up, that means more tax revenue, more, again, that productive income. That discretionary income goes out of my pocket, goes out of your pocket, and goes to Washington, D.C., where the decisions are made on how to spend that. Now, again, I have a serious disagreement on does government spend the money best, or do individuals and families and businesses spend their money the best? And I believe the latter group does a much better job at deciding on how to allocate their income versus either the federal government or the state government. But were that to happen, it can have serious consequences to the state of Missouri on their tax revenue that flows into their state's coffers.
Well, I know you've read the Missouri Constitution. I suspect you've read the federal Constitution, as have I read both of these. I can't find in either one of these documents that provision about redistribution of income. Where does this idea come from, and how do your colleagues or your former colleagues on the other side of the aisle justify the idea that money it's allowable
right.
to take money out of A's pocket and put it into B's pocket because B needs it?
Right.
By the way, I could use a loan here. Or not a loan, I need you to give me some money. I'm not paying it back.
A little short this month.
That's right. I need about $77 billion if you can muster that.
I can't quite do that. We had a $20 billion budget in Missouri, so that's just chump change. But a lot of it is driven by...
Wait. You just said Missouri's whole budget was how much?
It was about $23 billion plus or minus.
That's for a whole year.
That's for the entire year.
And I just said that we need to collect $77 billion more federally in order to balance the current budget of the United States. Right. So, okay, again, I'm sorry I interrupted, but you know, it's like these things come to my head and I have to the tongue just spills it out.
Well, it gives you a good idea of the order of magnitude of what the federal government is facing. And Missouri, when it comes to the budget, is in the middle as far as size, statewide. In fact, the state of Illinois, their budget, I thought, was in the $60 to $70 billion a year. Not that they have that much revenue, but that would be the entire state budget for the state of Illinois, which is a very large state, and then some. So again, gives a good idea of the order of magnitude of the challenge that the federal government faces. But back to your question, a lot of it is driven, they justify this at the federal level based on the general welfare clause. Talk about the general welfare of the people. Well, they come up with the welfare program, say, well, this fits within the general welfare clause. Well, clearly there's a significant disagreement in what the founders intended when they talked about general welfare, not a welfare program. So that's where their basis, I believe, a lot of it comes from for the fight. The other thing, my liberal friends, and I do have liberal friends on the other side of the aisle, they tend to make their decisions based on how it feels. This feels good to help people. Well, everyone wants to help people. It's what's the best process, method, avenue to help people? Is it through individuals and families and communities and churches, or is it through an uncaring, unfeeling state bureaucracy? They believe the state bureaucracy is the way to help people, and therefore they have to use that tax revenue to accomplish the means that they want to accomplish. So we agree with in the end to some extent, but we have serious disagreements about how to accomplish this.
Well, rebuilding those portions of Joplin, Missouri that were damaged in that horrible tornado, I imagine that this is probably a proper use of tax money?
In the state of Missouri, we do have something, actually there are a number of funds, and one of them is referred to as the Rainy Day Fund is what it's called. And the purpose of the Rainy Day Fund is actually to set money aside on an annual basis to address a physical disaster that the state has. And we obviously don't have those often, which is a good thing. But the money in the Rainy Day Fund, the purpose is exactly to address the kind of disaster that Joplin suffered on the Good Friday tornado. And so clearly that is within the range and scope of the Constitution of the state of Missouri. If the General Assembly, along with the governor, wants to use money out of the Rainy Day Fund, then they certainly are within their rights to do such.
But because somebody lost their job, or they didn't get a proper education, and they just don't have the money in order to do the things that they go on vacation, or well, I'm being flipped there, but you know, to do the things that other people that they see on television get to do. Well, personally, I just disagree that there should just be the assumption that those other people who can afford it are required. I mean, charity is one thing. If somebody wishes to take money out of their pocket and give it to somebody, that's, you know, that's the American way. When you put a gun to their head and say either pay up or we're sending you to jail, that's something else.
Right.
That seems un-American to me.
I would agree. When you're coercing or forcing charity, so to speak, then I would agree completely that is not the American way. The United States, if you read any studies, the United States is one of the most generous nations, if not the most generous nation in the world. And when it comes to private donations, Americans are very generous with their money to help those who are truly in need. But the point you're making is very good. If someone drops out of high school and then for some reason expects that either the government or the state or whomever, they owe me because, well, I don't know where you come up with that. In fact, there's an article I would suggest that you read, and I haven't had a chance to do this. It's by Heritage Foundation, which I'm sure you're familiar with. They actually looked at the, quote, poor in the United States. And clearly there are people who are suffering severe poverty through no fault of their own. I'm not talking about those individuals, but they looked at the poor, how the poor manage. You'd be surprised that the poor in this country own their own home, own 1 or 2 cars, own 1 or 2 color television sets, own a number of electronic gadgets that if I wouldn't think the poor would own an iPod necessarily or own a color TV, and yet they're considered poor, and I'm not sure what that definition is, and I do want to read that Heritage article because I think it illustrates that a majority of the people in the United States who are receiving this redistribution are considered poor. Well, by any standard whatsoever, they're not poor, they're middle class. They're just enjoying the free ride on the back of the taxpayer, which is wrong.
Well, let's come back to the Club for Growth,
Okay.
which is the real reason why you're here. What is it that you would like, you say you want people to come, learn more about their government, and having learned more about their government, what would you like them to act upon?
Very good question. At this meeting in Rolla last week, I told this group, I think the biggest problem that we as Americans face in the political arena is apathy. Too many people don't care, they don't understand, they don't get involved, they're uninformed, whatever the case may be. And so we end up with the government we have because of that, what I believe is that apathy. One of the things that the Club for Growth will do is help keep individuals informed. We will send out an email on a regular basis about what is going on in Jefferson City when it comes to the policies and the philosophies we believe and support. We want people to be informed about, is the General Assembly calling for, or is the governor calling for a tax increase? I think the people of the state of Missouri should understand if that's going on. And I, for one, understand that people are very busy raising families, going to jobs, et cetera, and they don't have time to be a political wonk and go on to Politico all the time or go into whatever other political websites, Drudge Report, to keep up with what's going on, especially at the state level.
Or drive to Jefferson City.
Or drive to Jefferson City. And whenever I was traveling the state last year, one of the things I heard, a lot of people say, well, we don't know how to get involved, we don't know who to turn to become informed. Well, here's an organization that will take a lot of the legwork out of it for you. We will keep you informed on these issues as to what is going on in Jefferson City. So as I said earlier, there is no cost to become a member, but it's a good way to find out what is going on in your state government because it is your state government.
Now you have a brochure laying here on the table, but is there somewhere that people can go? Everybody,
Yes.
Not everybody, many people have computers and can get online. Is there somewhere that they can go?
Yes, our website is Mo Club for Growth, Mo, M-O, Club for, not the number, but the word, F-O-R, growth.com. So if they go to moclubforgrowth.com, there should be a button on that home page someplace that says sign up or something to that effect, and they could simply input their email address and we will add you to what is, I'm glad to say, a growing list of individuals from around the state who are becoming interested and starting to pay attention to what is going on in Jefferson City. And again, I'll say it again, there is no charge to become a member. If you want to donate, we appreciate that. There are operating costs that do happen, that do take place. But again, there is no charge. We want to grow our membership so that more people in the state of Missouri understand what is going on in their state capital.
Now, is this an overtly political organization, or is this like an even-handed, here's information?
We are a nonpartisan. We're not a Republican or a Democrat organization. We look for candidates that believe in the philosophies that we've espoused. And of course, we encourage that type of legislation to be introduced in the state of Missouri. And so we try to present an even-handed update, if you will, on, again, specific bills or legislation that is taking place in Missouri that deal with one of our key points that we support.
Mm-hmm. And you say you're growing?
We are growing, and I'm not going to obviously reveal numbers. We're into the thousands of people around the state. But as I talk to people, one of the things we will do is encourage legislators to support good policies, low tax, low regulation, these sorts of things. And if the larger our membership grows, then legislators tend to pay attention. If you walk in the door, say, I represent an organization that has 50,000 registered voters around the state.
Right.
Versus I represent 5 registered voters.
I'm here to talk to you.
I'm here by myself talking about good, and it may be good policy no matter how many supporters you have, but people in elected office tend to pay more attention to organizations that have a larger or broader backing than just one guy waving the flag. So
it's either votes or a checkbook.
Those two tend to get elected officials' attentions for various reasons. So if people join the Club for Growth, we can help them ensure good policy by growing that organization and having more clout around the state. Just as simple as that.
Are you putting money into political campaigns?
Yes, we do. We believe in not just espousing good policy, but following through by identifying and supporting people who run for office. In fact, last year in the general election in November, the Club for Growth endorsed and financially supported 13 different candidates on the ballot. And believe it or not, we had a 1,000% batting record. We went 13 for 13, which was very unusual. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to point out there are 163 members in the Missouri House and 34 in the state Senate. So it's almost 200 members, and there are about 180 who are running for election last year. 13 is much shy of 180. What we try to do is find races where we can actually make a difference. We don't want to get involved and put money into a race where we know who is going to win. We want to look for people who are on the bubble where we can actually come in and push them over the goal line so that they are successful. So we spend that money wisely. And again, I'm happy to report, I don't know if we can keep this up, but 13 for 13 is a pretty good record.
And the kind of people that you're supporting are those that want to keep taxes low.
Yes.
And keep regulation of what to a minimum?
Regulation, normally we talk about business regulation.
Right.
One of the obvious problems at the federal level is tremendous over-regulation, which continues to grow unchecked, unfortunately, and the impact that it has on business. Well, the last thing that we want to see happen in the state of Missouri is that expansion of regulation just for the sake of, and I alluded to earlier, some people think government can do a better job in running your life and running your business than you can, and they do that via regulation. That's the last thing that the Club for Growth wants to see happen in the state of Missouri. Low regulation, low tax, let the free market decide who the winner is on an even and fair playing field.
Well, to be honest, there are a large number of people throughout the country and in the state of Missouri who simply can't seem to control themselves.
True.
And I suspect that these are the folks that that those folks you're talking about who believe in these things want to, quote, protect.
Mm-hmm. It is an issue as far as when does it go from being what the government truly is supposed to do to an overreaching arm of Big Brother that protects us from even ourselves. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of philosophical fights, and one that's going on in St. Charles County and really around the state is smoking bans. Is government becoming Big Brother and telling people or restaurant owners that you cannot allow this policy when clearly that's an infringement on that business? Right. If they want to allow smoke, and I don't smoke, I don't like smoke, but clearly is that an infringement on that business owner's right to decide whether or not they want to have that type of policy?
I've never smoked, and but I also agree that it's a bad deal when government comes and tells business owners, private business owners, that hey, you can't do this or you must do that when it comes to smoking and a whole host of other things as well. We got about like 4 minutes left here. I just wanted to let you know that because time goes by fast.
It does.
And if there is some area that we haven't covered, I want you to talk about it now.
Well, I think we've touched on everything the Missouri Club for Growth is about. It's been around for a few years, but really over the last year, we've become much more energetic, much more engaged, and much more active in trying to build that name ID, that brand ID, if you will, around the state of Missouri. And I think if people were to visit the website and to join, they'd find that it would be a good organization to be part of, and it helps them stay informed on what's going on at the state level. And there's, of course, a national Club for Growth. It's just clubforgrowth.com. If you're interested, and most people tend to be on what's going on at the federal level, you could certainly become a member of the Club for Growth. But I'd encourage people to get involved in their government, because it is their government. Whenever I would run for office and I would talk to people and say, reach out, find one candidate, just one. If you want to do more, that's fine, but just one good candidate that you can actively support and go beyond just voting for. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, put a yard sign in your yard. Send this poor slob $25 to run a tough campaign. Get involved in these races, because these are the people who are making serious decisions about your future on a daily basis. So help get involved in your government. Send good people to Jeff City.
163 people make a lot of decisions in the House of Representatives in Missouri.
Yes, they do. I would tell folks kind of half jokingly, we on a daily basis are either doing something for you or something to you. And so it really is important to send people who have that right worldview, that government does serve a purpose, but it's not to be your big brother. It's to ensure the freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, that you maintain those freedoms.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the person, it's the office that does the voting. So
yes,
if you want things to change, you just need to get the office to vote the way you want to have it vote.
And that's part of just reaching out and contacting your elected officials to let them know. And again, as an individual, it's tough to change an elected official's opinion, but if you, again, have an organization, say the Missouri Club for Growth, that has 5,000 or 50,000 members, elected officials pay attention to that, because that translates into votes, and that's what they need to get back to Jeff City.
Mm-hmm. Any
thoughts?
I mean, lots. I guess with the 2012 elections coming up, you guys have a lot of plans?
We do. We haven't gotten really engaged. We'll wait till the new year breaks. We obviously need to see who signs up and who's running for what office. We do have questionnaires that we send to people running. We want to know where they stand, and it's pretty obvious from the questionnaires on where we stand, because everyone who supports and agrees with our philosophy wants our support. But as I said earlier, we're not big enough of an organization to support everyone who's running for office. We want to get engaged in those tough fights where we can make a difference, again, to send good people to Jeff City to represent us.
Mm-hmm. And what about yourself? You spent a long time in elected politics yourself. You've got term limited out. Is this something you want to go for again, or is this?
That's a good question. People ask me that on a regular basis. I never say never, and part of it depends on what the situation is. I want good people to run for office, but in some cases, I might be that person, and I don't know. So I've yet to say no, but I'm not saying yes. I'm busy, again, as my wife says, in the real world, paying bills and Club for Growth, and I also am on the St. Louis County Redistricting Commission. There we go. That's tough. That's tough to get out. We're redrawing those lines. So.
Okay. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
My guest today has been Alan Icet, former member of the Missouri State Legislature. He's also now the chairman of the Missouri Club for Growth. You saw the .coms to go to. Take a look if you want. See you next week.